Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Hebert, Director of Communications here at SAANYS, and welcome to today's edition of SAANYS Connect. This episode is part one of our discussion on stress and anxiety. Now, before we begin, we're going to hear a brief word from our sponsor, The Leader in Me.
Why Leader in Me? Leader in Me isn't as much about doing things differently as it is first seeing them differently. When one principal reimagined what school could be for her students, her teachers, families, for her community, who would have thought that vision would see over 5,000 schools around the world, transforming how they proactively create the learning culture they want to see in their buildings? And you're invited to join this community of seeing the power of leadership as a choice rather than a position, of taking the talk of whole child learning into whole person teaching practice, and getting hands-on with real social emotional learning at school and at home, helping others see what they don't yet see in themselves. That's the adventure and the promise of Leader in Me.
Great. So thank you to Leader in Me. And I think you're all seeing a picture of the SAANYS website right now. Before we begin, I want to quickly share some news about our upcoming virtual conference in collaboration with our friends at NYSCAPE. On Sunday, November 22nd, SAANYS will have a one-day leadership strand within the larger four-day NYSCAPE virtual conference. The workshop offerings are diverse and timely and all available for viewing from the comfort of your home. So visit saanys.org to learn more and to register right online. Okay. Now, so just a few housekeeping notes. Place your screen in speaker view mode rather than gallery view mode, so the speaker appears in the large screen. Second, everyone is placed in mute mode, so please use the chat panel throughout the presentations for comments and questions. If time permits, we'll unmute at the end of the program for some live Q&A. Lastly, this presentation is being recorded and will be placed on the SAANYS website along with any additional resources mentioned today from our panelists. Now with that, I'll turn it over to Karen Bronson, our Director of Professional Learning. Karen?
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for the info about SAANYS Sunday coming up on November 22nd. I'm happy to say that a couple of our panelists who are with us today will actually be presenting on their topics in more depth at that virtual conference. So make sure you check it out. It's really going to be excellent. We're looking forward to it. So thank you for joining us at SAANYS Connect again today. This is our 14th panel since April 1st. We've had them every 2 weeks. And as always, our purpose is to come together and to bring our school leaders across New York State together on urgent topics during a time that really demands that we come together and collaborate like never before. So we're very happy to be here today to have part one of our two-part series on the impact of stress and anxiety on you as educators today in today's environment. Today, we're going to be focusing on the impact on you as the school leader. Next time on November 12th for part two, we're going to focus more on how you as the school leader can help teachers and other members of your school community reduce their own levels of stress and anxiety. But today the focus will primarily be on you as the school leader. So we know that being a school leader has always been a challenging, demanding, and overwhelming responsibility. That is nothing new. But the events of the past year have brought that level of overwhelm, which is now a noun, to heights that we have never imagined. So we want to see today, what are some of the primary stressors that you and other school leaders are experiencing now? And most importantly, what are some reasonable steps, some realistic steps we can take to reduce that stress and anxiety? So in part one today, I'm going to ask you to imagine you're on a plane and ready to take off, hopefully to some beautiful location. And the flight attendant reminds you that in the event of an emergency, you need to put your own mask on first before you attempt to help others. That's where we hope to go in this conversation today. How can you put your own mask on so that you can help others? How can you protect your own mental health in a way that will enable you to be there to support all of those who need you, both professionally and personally, when your impulse is just to reach out and keep helping those people that you care about so much as you can? So please join me in welcoming today's panelists. I'm so glad that they're able to be with us. Dr. Larry Dake. Larry is Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Budget, Binghamton City School District, and also the author of the upcoming book that we're very excited about, Crisis Management: Leadership Steps to Avoid Early Burnout. Welcome, Larry. Thanks so much for being here today. You'll also see Larry presenting at our virtual conference. Felicia Thomas Williams. Felicia is principal at West Middle School, Brentwood, UFSD. And Felicia is the SAANYS Secondary 2020 Principal of the Year and NASSP New York State Principal of the Year. And she is also a member of SAANYS Government Relations Committee. And Felicia is a veteran of our SAANYS Connect panel. She's been here with us a couple of times before, and I'm always so happy when I invite her back that she can come back and share with us. So thanks so much, Felicia, for being here today. I'm so pleased to welcome Sarah Chaffee. Sarah is the Academic Administrator for ENL and World Languages at Shenendehowa Central School District, and she is the Director of Capital Area Language Leaders. Welcome, Sarah, and thanks so much for being here. And Sarah is joined by her colleague, Drew Anderson, PhD. Drew is an Associate Professor of Psychology at UAlbany and a clinical psychologist in private practice with HPA LiveWell in Albany. Welcome, Drew, and thanks so much for being here today. I'd like to remind, our attendees to remember to post questions, comments, thoughts, perspectives, ideas, you name it, in our chat bar right as soon as we start our conversation. I'll be looking at some of those questions and comments and sharing them with the panel throughout the first parts of our discussion. And then we will leave a good 10 or 15 minutes at the end before we wrap up at 5 o'clock. And if you are posting questions or comments, I will ask you as a member of our audience to articulate your own question to the panel. If you're still with us, if not, I will do that. But we try to get to hear some of your voices as well. So feel free to post what you're thinking. So let's get started. We're going to begin by asking our panelists what the landscape looks like where they are, and they are in different parts of New York State. What are some of the primary stressors that you are seeing among the leaders in your school communities or other colleagues that you come into contact with, and yourself, including yourself? And have these primary stressors changed over the course of the pandemic and the past months? And if so, how? So maybe we can kind of start with Larry. Larry is up there in what has been a hot zone. I think things may be winding down a little bit, but Larry, just kind of tell us where you are and what's going on where you are.
Sure. Thank you, Karen, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So again, my name is Larry Dake. I'm here in Binghamton, New York, which is in Broome County. About 2.5 weeks ago, our county was designated as a yellow zone by Governor Cuomo, and in particular, the area code in which our schools exist, all 10 of our schools are within that yellow zone, and the positivity rate in that microcluster is hovering right around 6.5%. It's been over the threshold to go to orange, but we haven't received that word yet. So we are actually getting ready to, starting tomorrow, begin COVID testing 20% of our students and staff in all 10 buildings, and have been working on that plan as the week goes on. There is another district in our region that has started that and has helped us through that process as well. So, you know, in working with principals and other administrators and school leaders, and also, you know, reflecting on myself, you know, in terms of primary sources of stress, I think we all pride ourselves on having a grasp of our school communities And, when we don't know the answer, knowing where to go find it, using our network to have resources. And part of the reality right now is that nobody has any good answers. And when our staff come to us and they're in a heightened state of stress and anxiety, we're in a heightened state of stress and anxiety as well. And that's been really one of the challenges. The other part to this, I think, is that typically when you have stress in your work life, your home life, or other parts of your life, they're not all in upheaval at once, but in this case, they are. So our work lives may be chaotic, but your home life might have its normal routines and your normal rhythms of your day and your month and your year, or vice versa. Maybe you go to work to escape some of the stress of a new child or a change in a family life or something like that. In this case, they're both in total chaos. And I have 3 elementary age kids that are on fully remote learning right now. And here it is stressful as well. So I think it's that combined stress. We talk about concepts with kids about ACEs scores or the accumulated stress of different situations. So I think that's what a lot of us are facing right now in this field is not just 1 or 2 stressors, but multiple things being out of whack at the same time. And that, I think, is impacting a lot of how we show up to work and some of the steps that we need to take to be more intentional about how we show up to work.
Thank you, Larry. Can we just stop for a minute? Can you tell us a little bit about what the process will be for the testing that you're going to be conducting?
Sure. So we have made the decision that we are going to be asking for parental consent to test any students. We're a 5,000 to 6,000 student district, 5,500. It's fluctuated like probably a lot of yours right now with particularly kindergartners. And so we've made that decision that we are going to do the best we can to get to 20%. We may not get to 20% in every single building every week. We are asking for volunteers with our students and with our staff, although we have been honest with our staff that we feel like we will ask for volunteers, but we do reserve the right to direct the testing if we need to, if our numbers are too low. But we are not going to be testing any student without a signed parental consent form, or we have a digital consent process as well on our website. So it's not the jam it up your nose Roto-Rooter swab. It's a gentle swab that takes about 5 seconds. The swab then goes into a reactive agent on what I can describe as a cardboard piece of paper, and you test it. And then, much like a pregnancy test, after several minutes, I think the number is 15, you get 1 or 2 lines. And I can't tell you which is good or bad, but depending on what those lines are, means that you test negative or positive. The tests that we have, to our knowledge, are tests that were designed for symptomatic individuals, and we're going to be using them on asymptomatic people. So if our experience is anything like New York City's, where they tested 12, 13,000 people and found less than 30 positives, that's what we're experiencing too. And the district that's been doing this so far has told us they have not had any positives after 2 days.
Thank you. And the testing will be conducted in school?
It will be. We've licensed out, it has to be by an RN, an LPN, or an EMT. So we've licensed 2 additional nurses with one of our healthcare facilities in the region. But we are repurposing some of our own staff for the logistics. So we do expect there will be, if we have to do this all year, about an additional $100,000 in costs to do this, of which there is not aid, and of which we're also, all of us, talking about a very, very challenging budget here. So a lot of balls in the air with it.
Thank you. I did just want to take a minute and just get some information on that point. I hope it's not a point that many of us have to become familiar with in our own schools or districts, but it might be. And I don't think there are many schools at this point that have gotten, to the point that you are, Larry, where you're kind of learning how you actually conduct this kind of testing. So thank you for letting us in on that process a little bit. I'm gonna ask Felicia, when we got together, when the panel got together for a conversation prior to today, Felicia used the phrase roller coaster ride. She said, we've been on a roller coaster ride since March, and that is really the truth. That really describes it very well, I think. Felicia, maybe you can tell us where your roller coaster is right now down in Brentwood and what's going on.
Absolutely. So in March, when we first went into the fully remote program, one of the things that I want to share with you about Brentwood, if you're not already aware of it, is we are a very socioeconomically disadvantaged school district. We are the largest suburban school district in New York State. Right now, our rolling number for COVID is 7.6% in the community. But I do find it necessary to share with you that it is a very densely populated community with a significant number of individuals who are either undocumented. We have a large number of unaccompanied youth. And so when we really embarked on this, it's important for you to know that we had not provided devices for our children. And so they didn't all have, Chromebooks or some of the luxuries that children in other districts have. We have an 86% poverty rate. And so one of the things that we were most concerned with was making sure that our kids had food to eat. So even though you would think getting them devices would have been our primary interest, it was far from the truth. We also had such a significant amount of individuals who were overcome with COVID. In my building alone, I had 6 children whose parents succumbed to the virus. And that was before June. So our kids' social emotional needs were much more of a priority. Not that we weren't concerned with their learning needs, but obviously for significant reasons, we went more into a role of providing food, providing supports, raising money to help people bury their family members. We had a very different type of beginning than some, if not many. In the beginning of the summer, part of my roller coaster ride that I was sharing with the panel was we had so little information on what it was going to look like when we reopened. We had no idea what to expect. So we didn't even know how to build a schedule appropriately because we hadn't been provided with information on what school was going to look like, which I'm sure is everyone's story if you're a school administrator. So we built different scenarios to try and address what the possibilities were. We had panels that met every other day for hours on end. And you asked, where are we now? Where am I in the roller coaster? So I went from, I have no idea what it's going to look like, but we're going to make it work, to, oh my God, what is this going to look like? And how are we going to handle this? To, you know what, this might be a mess, but it's our mess and we've got this. And so we've got this became the theme when my faculty started to return and we started communicating with them. And really, I recognized my role was just to really let them know and to be very honest and transparent that I didn't have answers. That's how it was going to be. We were going to be navigating our way. I hate to use that statement, building the plane while flying it. We heard that before when APPR was rolled out, but I'm sure that you can relate to how that's really relative right now. So we're awaiting devices. We have been able to provide devices as well as hotspots for our children who don't have Wi-Fi. We do offer free meals every other day. We are working in a hybridity model. Obviously, our stress levels are still high, I'm sure, like many of you. However, I'm feeling more confident now, even with that 7.6 rolling COVID. We haven't been considered a yellow spot, but in the back of my head, my concerns are, again, I'm in a highly impoverished area where people have very limited access to healthcare and are afraid to go and get tested. So my suspicion is,
If I know I want to work out 4 times and I'm going to feel guilty if I don't, I can schedule over 7 days when that's going to happen. And one of the things that when you do this, you find out is that you have a lot of empty blocks at different points of the day and the week. And so it also helps you realize that there are points in your day where you can let yourself decompress. One of the things I've read comments about coming in early, leaving. I used to really pride myself on being the first car in and the last car out. Like that was part of my self-worth. I thought that's what made me a hard worker. That's what made me a good administrator. And then maybe as I've had children and some other things that happened in my life, I've realized that the best measure of time management is pretty much being able to walk out the door at a similar time every day. And knowing that you have that consistency and you plan for those things to get done. One way that I've actually changed this, and this is in the last month, is I've actually moved the Saturday, Sunday columns before Monday. And I'll do this before I leave work on Friday now. I just found it's too hard to plan for next Saturday 6 days before. But if I plan for tomorrow on a Friday afternoon, I'm much more likely to feel like I have a good game plan and I'm prepared. And again, things change, but you create those conditions for being managing your time well. So that's just one really simple strategy that I found to be successful. And I think it plays into that idea of you have to be in charge of your own time, whether it's email, whether it's your schedule, whether it's your chaos time, or somebody else will.
Thank you. And Sarah began mentioning email, and Larry, you've kind of continued it a little. Maybe you can just kind of speak another moment about that. I think many of us as school leaders would agree that the crushing loads of emails that we receive every day, and we feel very tense about responding within some honorable time frame, that can really be a very big part of the daily kind of drain, that we're feeling, especially at a time like this. So I know that, and I know in your book you talk about those conditions, right?
Yeah,
So just a bit more about email.
One little thing. I mean, and again, you can't stop people from emailing you, but I fully believe that when it comes to things like email, you treat people how to treat you. So if you're going to be emailing them on weekends and when you're on vacation, they're going to be emailing you back. And if you just avoid that practice, it's hard to stop when you've started. But if you set that expectation, listen, on a weekend, I'm going to answer my phone if it's someone, but if it's an email, I'm probably not going to respond unless it's something really urgent. And I assume if it's urgent, it's probably a phone call or a text message. But I've seen too many administrators get into this back and forth ratio of email comes in, I send it back, comes in, like we're using it almost like text messaging. And I think that's dangerous. So I think email is something that I'm going to talk about on the 22nd on SAANYS Sunday. Unfortunately, Sarah and Drew's presentation and mine are at the same time at 12:40, but I've checked the schedule. The Giants and the Bills both have a bye on November 22nd. So attend SAANYS Sunday, come to either. And if you're a Jets fan, they're playing 4:05 in San Diego. It will probably fall to 0-12 on that day anyway. So we hope to see you on SAANYS Sunday at 12:40.
Oh yeah, thank you, Larry. All righty, so let's at this point, let's kind of shift to some of the great strategies that are coming up in our chat bar. And if I may, I'm going to go to Adaremi. Adaremi kind of goes back to something Felicia touched upon, and that is there are kind of like hard strategies with regard to planning our time, and there are less tangible strategies in terms of mindset, right? How we adjust our own mindset about what we can and can't do and how we communicate that with others. So maybe, Adaremi, maybe you can share what you shared in the chat bar with us, if you are still with us, which I hope you are. There you are.
Yes, what I was trying to say in essence is we are all going through this pandemic. No one is immune, be the children that we're working with, the administration, and the faculty. And I believe it's quite relieving to let them know that you are going what they are going through, but we can walk it through together. There are so many things we cannot predict. What we think is right this moment, the next moment is so obsolete or irrelevant or impracticable. So we need to be very candid and open with our teachers to let them know all the answers they're looking for. Some we have answers, some we don't have answers to. So that's what I was talking about.
Absolutely. And I know that you mentioned don't be ashamed to show your own vulnerabilities, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's the first part of what I was saying, that I'm going through the stressor that you guys are going through. I have a life outside the school, just as you all do. I probably lost some friends, some family members, just like you do. So just to let them know that we are all in the same boat. I'm feeling the pains just as they are feeling the pains. But I'm there to support them, just as I would want for them to also be supportive of each other, the parents, as well as the children that we work with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to do a little lightning round here. We're getting a lot more great strategies than questions for this particular topic. So if you're posting, I'm just going to call on you to share what you shared in the chat bar. How about John Raflowski? And I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. I'll do my best. John. You with us, John?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
You are.
Yeah, just carving out some time, for yourself and kind of pulling yourself away from the day, to have some alone time. And I like somebody else put pray in there.
Yep, Schubert.
The alone time, even when I take that long walk or the bike ride, I do some praying along the way as well.
Can't be underestimated. Thank you. How about Phil Ortolani?
Hi.
Hi,
Yeah,
Phil.
hi. The work week has been, as everybody spoke to, I think as administrators, work week's always very busy. But as somebody also has a family and kind of, the day doesn't end when you go home necessarily, we found it really important to try and prioritize spending at least a day on a weekend where we're not doing things. We have a lot of family, so that's not easy to kind of, push off the requests of your loved ones to spend time with you for sure, but kind of prioritizing our immediate family and our own mental health has been huge for us. The other piece, that I that's been helpful for me is our opening day, knowing that communication volume was going to be really high this year and that our emails and phones were going to be blowing up. I was really clear with people about just my communication norms, like when to call me, when to text me, when to email me, and like the timeframes they can typically expect responses for each of those types of communications, so that I wasn't setting an unreal expectation for them and they weren't expecting it, putting an unreal expectation for me as well. That's helped.
Thank you, Phil. So kind of scaling down family commitments as we can too, just like our professional commitments. So we have time to spend with our closest family during that precious free time. Paul Cohn. Paul, if you are there, you shared a truly brave step. I'm really kind of stuck thinking about that. And I'm thinking, that would be great. But then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how could I ever do that? Paul, do you want to share that with us? What did you do?
Oops, I'm sorry, you cut out. I heard the end part. Could you repeat
Paul,
the
you
first
shared
part?
a brave strategy with us. Would you share it with the group?
Oh yeah. So about 2 years ago, I took the email off my phone.
Whoa.
Yeah. So because what I found out was in the evening, the notifications are coming in. I would read the email. It's something that, it's not necessarily essential that I respond. And I found myself responding. And, as others had talked about, it gets very consuming. And so it was liberating to take that email off my phone. And, it kind of got the understanding to my, fellow administrators that if you need to get a hold of me, call me, text me. But if it's something that you send through email, the response probably is not going to happen until the next day. And, if you really pare down your emails and you look at, the high priority ones, they're probably few and far between. They're things that can wait 8 hours or 10 hours to respond back. So for me, it's been successful. I've enjoyed not having those notifications. And like I said, I've been able to handle what needs to be handled.
I think that's a pretty brave step. I'm sure some of our listeners do too. And it seems to have really helped you. So,
and I would say too,
maybe we'll
Karen, if I
try.
could just hop in, I
Yes.
would also say that, and I know we, when Drew and I talk about setting these limits, for example, just saying to people, stop using a to-do list, raises eyebrows every time we share that with administrators.
Yep.
They can't believe we're actually asking them to get rid of the to-do list, right? But we would say the same thing about email. I would take it a step further and say, take the notification of your email and hide it on your computer as well. Because if you're working on a task or some bigger picture thing or communication with a parent, whatever it is, if that email is coming in, it's not only distracting you, but every time you're pulled away from what you're working on, you have to then work on that. And then you have to reset to get back to the task at hand. You've just wasted time there. You've actually wasted time. You
All right.
haven't saved it, right? And you have to sort of keep that in mind as you're working on things. And by the way, let's not forget too that you might check your email innocently on a Sunday evening, but you know what those emails can have in them, and they can set you off for the rest of the evening. If you read them on a Friday afternoon and you've got a teacher who's upset or a parent who's upset, you really risk your own mental health by checking your email on the weekends. It's really at your own risk.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, Felicia.
I agree so wholeheartedly, but the thought of eliminating my email on my phone is creating angst. I'm being fully transparent and I know what that abyss is.
Yeah.
You might go on just to check one thing and then you're like, oh, well, and then I know I have been caught up where, you know what, if I get these out of the way tonight, I don't have to deal with them in the morning. So I know you are absolutely 100% right. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for those of you who have been able to eliminate the email and have said that it's the best thing you could done. But the idea alone is just going to take me a minute. I'm going to be very honest and tell you I'm having a little bit of a anxious, that's making me anxious.
So Felicia,
thank
I
you.
would just say we get that response from people all the time. And I would say, here's what I would suggest to you, and I would suggest to everyone who goes through that. And by the way, it's really important, full disclosure here. This is all a work in progress for me. I can sit here and tell everybody to get rid of the to-do list, but know that I probably have a Post-it note somewhere with 4 things on it I need to do. And I probably will check email tonight. But the thing that we would say is, and I think Paul said it in the chat, try it for a week or two. The
I love
other thing to think about is schedule onboarding time for yourself on a Monday morning, right? Nothing is going to change unless it's an emergency, in which case someone shouldn't be emailing you an emergency, right? Unless it's an emergency, there's nothing that's going to change over the course of the weekend that you can't onboard yourself with on Monday. So on Monday morning, give yourself a block of time in your schedule where all you do is onboard. That might mean checking emails from the weekend, whatever that is for you, to sort of ramp up into the week. But it gives you the freedom to say, I'm not going to do that on the weekend.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Schubert Jacobs. You've had a couple of great suggestions. One of them was very succinctly put, pray, which we totally hear. But in addition to that, during your actual school day, can you share what you posted in the chat bar? What's important to do during your school day that is kind of on a different track than turning off those emails and gets us maybe more back to kind of the joy part, which is still under there someplace? Schubert, you want to share with us?
Okay. Yes, thank you. Just want to say to Felicia, I have that angst too about taking it off the devices. But Sarah, I have it on 4 different places, so I'm going to at least start with one.
That's good. Reasonable.
Yeah, the whole thing of visiting classrooms, I kind of find there's some fun in it, that you enjoy the kids and they enjoy you. So one of the things for me is to try to figure out who the child is behind the mask. And when you look into that eye and you say hi and you call a name, there's a connection that the kid has that somehow changes that social distancing. So I think the connection there is very, very important for kids, and it does bring some joy to your life as well. So visiting classrooms and saying, hi, how are you? You know, that's a great practice, I think.
Cannot be underestimated, that's for sure. One of the local elementary schools here, many schools started with a theme this year as in other years, and their theme was, there's a smile behind this mask. And I think that's a really, really good theme, just to remind one another and ourselves, that there are smiles behind many of those masks. And who is more resilient than those wonderful kids? Really. I mean, we're all running around and stewing and filled with anxiety about our role in all of this, but just making that connection every day with students in our buildings and with those who are learning remotely, who aren't physically in our buildings, but up there on a screen, is really just a great, simple, and hugely important thing to remember. So thank you, Schubert. just kind of hear from a couple of other folks here. Mary Volcomer. Mary said something interesting. Stress in itself is not a problem, but it's chronic or long-term stress that's the real issue. Mary, you want to comment on that? I'll share a little bit of what Mary said here. She said, great options to release stress have been seen in the chat. Front loading the workout in the morning before I start my workday is helpful and helps me manage my day better. Thank you. And Mary also added, it's gotten a lot trickier to delegate tasks because everybody else is near their threshold too. That's a pretty good point as well. So thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I was just going to jump in real say that I totally agree with that. I think that you really see burnout as the ending of a process. It is not a, it's not the crisis. It's the ongoing mismatch between your resources and your, the needs there that really cause the problems. Right? And so I do think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that this doesn't happen overnight. You work your way into burnout, by putting out more than you're taking back in. And to add to that, I was kind of reading through the chat as we went through, and there's so many really, really amazing
there really are
things in here. But the point I just wanted to make, and I think we've all made it, is that unless you carve out that time, it sounds awesome to do yoga and like to take the time with your kids and your family. But if you find yourself, instead of doing that stuff on a Saturday, you're checking emails while you're watching your kid's soccer game, that is not helpful. It's really having to take the time for yourself and not taking pride in being on the road to burnout. I just wanted to say that I wanted to throw that out there, is that so often we take pride in being the last one in the bill. Like Larry said, you take pride in the first one there, last one out, that it is not a point of pride to burn yourself out. It is, you may think you're being a good citizen and you're really helping. What you're doing is saying, you don't value yourself or your, or your own time.
That's great. And that's come up a couple of times in our conversation today, Drew, and you just put it so well. I think that'll be one of the big takeaways for us today, to just keep that in mind. And that's really hard, right? Because many of us are literally hardwired to do the opposite of that. It's almost as if being a school leader trained you to do that. So that's not easy to do. I really want to get in one more kind of strategy from Donna McGuire. You really posted a great tip up here. Would you like to share it with us? I see Donna. You just have to.
Can you hear
unmute.
me?
There you go. We can.
Oh, great. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm just thinking about the pandemic, that it is bigger than all of us, right? So nature is the opposite. It's also bigger than all of us. And so we have to maybe balance our life by thinking about the opposites here. And so if you're always in the moment, on your cell phone, on the weekends, at the soccer, doing everything with the computer, how can you break away and be the opposite? And sometimes we have to do something so humbling in life as to experience nature. So for me, I love to dig in dirt and pop bulbs in the yard. And you know what? It's just the opposite, but it's almost like a mental therapy. He gets away, cleans out the cobwebs. And by the way, do you notice my little spooky background? That's for the cobwebs. But you kind of have to just pull out. And then while you're doing it, you get ideas, it refreshes it. Your brain is a muscle and you're constantly on that treadmill. You can't put your brain just can't be going, that motor can't be going all the time. You have to do something different to break it up. And since this pandemic, I've been doing that and it has helped. You know what it has helped with? Just the ease, the anxiety, the sleep. And if you're not a gardener, you pick up something else and you don't have to do it all the time. Maybe there's online classes now free, to take painting or through Michael's. There's so many different ways that you could just pick an ad hoc thing and just enjoy. And, that's what I would suggest, just to break it up for yourself and feel good.
Thank you, Donna. And kind of on a different note, but also something you posted, share the WhatsApp chat that you did in your school.
Oh, sure. Okay, so here's my
Back
phone.
to technology.
And there's something called WhatsApp that my school, it's, by the way, it's in New York City. A lot of our students are Dominican. They have a lot of family in DR. And in order to communicate with the families, they use WhatsApp because it doesn't cost them anything. And so I've always heard about it, but I never tried it. And, you know, this pandemic is really trying to make us grow out. When you are forced to move out of your comfort zone, that's when you really grow. So I'm learning a lot of different things like Zoom and WhatsApp. And basically, we got everyone's cell phone number on there from school. And we'll just say, you know, post a favorite recipe, or make a picture of a smiley face, or post your favorite character or something, and it just gets everyone excited. And you know, we also talk about breakthroughs, fun times, what they're looking forward to, and we don't do it like on the weekends, because we do respect people's personal time, but we'll start that in the morning or right before we leave. And it's gotten people to connect and learn about each other in a different way. And since we've been back, I say the morale is so high, and in comparison to other schools who are not doing it. And I think it's because we did this, and it brought the connectivity when we needed it the most between March and, let's say, August. But we still do it. It's just we're slowing it down because we're there at school more.
Thank you. So that WhatsApp chat for your school, Donna, is really focused on people sharing up stuff, you know, positive things, and having a place to share more informally about some of those good things, you know, with their colleagues. So
yeah, I just want to give you an
important
example.
suggestion. Yeah.
I just want to give you an example. Like sometimes you see those little funny like quips on like a Twitter, or like a funny thing that a child did in like a math class, and someone will share it and will just brighten our day. And then like a lot of emojis come forward, but it just like reminds you of why you started teaching and why you're an educator. And it's very inspirational. And, you know, post a favorite flower. Mother's Day, everyone said, post a picture of you with the flower. You're out in the garden. It's just, it's fun. It just brings people spirit up. And that's a good thing.
Thank you. I know that several people, we don't have time for more comments right now, but several people have commented on how helpful it was for them to just turn off the notifications on their phone, how that has really helped both their personal and professional time. So we have really great suggestions here. We might be able to find a way. I'll ask Michelle Hebert, our Director of Communications, who makes this all come together, if there's a way we can kind of capture the chat for this particular conversation and send it out to you, or make it available with the recorded version.
Yes. Yep, we have been saving the chat, and as everyone chimes in, I've been trying to post them all to Twitter too. So we're posting all those stresses on Twitter, but we can certainly condense all of these tips and share them out.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, everyone. The wisdom is really in the room, right? Not among expert presenters, which is a whole different time that we're in. So we hope you like this format. We hope you like meeting some of our panelists from all points all over the state, as well as sharing with one another. I really just want to thank Larry and Sarah and Drew and Felicia, and always Michelle, for making it here today, for taking time out of their busy schedules to do some planning with me and to be here today to share with you. And I want to thank all of you for coming. I hope you come on November 12th. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to focus in on improving the stress level, working with stress level that teachers may be experiencing. And that's kind of a big topic. So we're going to hone it down into a circle process. We're going to have a couple of friends from NYSET, Heather Adam and Terry McSweeney will be here talking about how you as a school leader can implement a circle process that hits many bases, you know, not only during this time of COVID, but beyond that as well, too. One of those great practices to carry forward. We'll also hear a little bit about how mentoring can help during this time. and some other strategies that we can use with our teachers. But for today, I hope you just plain enjoyed our conversation. I hope you can take something from it that works for you. I'm still thinking, I think like Felicia on, oh my God, taking my email. But you will be able, we had so many good suggestions that you'll be able to find one that, that hopefully will help you. So for tonight, I just want to say thanks for being here. Keep connecting with each other. It's the most important thing right now. That's what it's all about. Just keep connecting, come back next time. And in the meanwhile, have a great evening. Don't look at those emails. Okay, you're done. All right, that's it. Have a glass of wine. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.